Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Genius Knowledge Point, your go-to place for practical programming solutions for diploma, computer and IT students. If you are stuck on any practical assignment or just want to learn how to solve programs step by step, then you are in the right place. The main purpose of making this video is to provide practical knowledge to all diploma students so that they can develop their own programs which will be helpful for their future. In this video, we are going to see practical number 8 of Object-Oriented Programming for Diploma, Computer and IT, Semester 3 and case scheme. So this practical is regarding static data member and static member function. So we have to write a program and we have to use static data members and static member function inside the program. So first we need to understand what is static data member and static member function. So let us see it in diagram. So if you have a class, that is consider it as a class A, and inside that class if you have two variables, that is int x and y. So these are the local variables of class. These are also called as member variables of class. And if you have a function 1 and function 2, that is member functions of the class A. So whenever we are creating an object of this class A, what will happen? Suppose I have created one object, that is obj1. So inside obj1 we will have memory space for x and y. That means whatever the object we have created for particular class, it will have a memory space for member variables. So the x variable will be having some space, y variable will be having some space, and those x and y variable will be for object 1. So similarly, if I am creating one more object, that is obj2, and I will be having x and y for obj2. So if you consider obj1's x and obj2's x, so both the x will be different, because on computer the memory space for those variables will be different because they are under different objects. Similarly for object 3, if I have created object 3, it will have different x and y. So though the names are same, that is the member variable names are same, x and y, but still as the objects are different, their memory location will be different and these variables will be different for each object. So this is the general structure of normal objects. But when I am creating any variable as a static member, so if I am creating int s, that is one more variable, that is integer variable, and I am attaching a static keyword before that, so what will happen? This int s, this s variable is common to all the objects, or you can say this s variable is for complete class. So that is the meaning of static data member. Whenever a variable is declared as static, so the variable is common to all the objects of that class. So if you create 3 objects or if you create 100 objects, the s variable will be same for all the objects. So that is the concept behind static data member. Similarly, if a function is declared as a static, it is again common to all the objects of that class. So this is the difference between normal variables, that is normal data members, and static data members. So let us move to the questioning part. So if you see, the first question is write a program to define class having data members, principal, duration and rate of interest. Declare rate of interest as a static member and calculate the simple interest and display it. So after reading the question, what we have understood, we have to define a class, and inside that class we have to add this data member, that is principal, duration and rate of interest. And apart from that, rate of interest, this variable is a static member, so we have to declare it as a static member, and we have to calculate the simple interest and display that output. So let us move to the coding part directly. If you see the code, so initially you have to include the header files, both the header files. Then I'm starting the definition of class, that is class, and I'm naming it as interest. So this is the class name. Inside that I am opening a private access specifier, and inside that I am taking integer, principal and duration. So both the data members are integer variables. Then after that I am starting the public section, and inside that I am taking static float rate of interest. So as we have seen in the question, the rate of interest should be a static data member. So the rate of interest should be having float data type, as the rate is always having fractional point. So the floating point number is defined. Then I am attaching static keyword behind that. So what will happen? This will be the static data member, and this member will be common to entire class. Next I am creating one more function, that is void accept, to accept the principal and duration, and I am passing two parameters as integer variables. So both the values of P and D will be copied into principal and duration respectively. So the accept function is complete. After that, to calculate the interest, I am creating one more function, that is float calculate interest. So this is having the return type, that is float value. So it should return a floating point number. So for that purpose I am returning the complete formula. So if you see the formula, principal into duration into rate of interest, and it is divided by 100.00. This is the typecasting, implicit typecasting. So the entire formula will return a float number, and that is our return type. Next we will move to the display function, that is void display, and I have called the calculate interest function here. So how I have called it? Float then interest. So this is the local variable for display function, is equal to calculate interest. So this function will be called here, and all the calculation part will done here, and the final result will be stored into interest variable, which is a float number. And after that I am just putting the output in front of the user, that is simple interest is, and putting the value of interest variable. So the display function is displaying the output, that is it is displaying the simple interest, and the calculate function is calculating the interest value and returning it as floating number, and accept function is accepting the principal and duration. So this is how all the functions are created. Finally closing the class with bracket and semicolon. So as we have discussed in the diagram, that the floating point or the static variable is common to entire the class. So for that purpose we have to initialize it with some value. So how to initialize it? So we have to define the data type, then the static member. So how to define a static member? We have to call it using the class name only, because it is common to complete class. It is not related to any object, it is common to entire class. So that's why we are calling it with class name, then using scope resolution operator, and after that the variable name. So as we have seen in the earlier, that is the static float rate of interest is our variable name. So this is how the function the static member is called, and equal to 7.00, this is the value I am assigning, so it will not have any garbage value. So the value is assigned. Now we will move to the main part, so that is int main. Starting of the main function, I am declaring both the variables, that is int pr, that is principal amount, and dr is the duration, and the rate as a floating point number. So all the variables are declared inside main, because we have to pass them to their functions. So that's why we have to create those variables here. Then I am just putting the message, enter the principal amount, and that value is accepted into pr variable. Then enter the duration, that value is accepted in dr variable, and finally enter the rate of interest, that is accepted into rate variable. So all the three values are accepted here. Now I am creating one object of the class, that is interest I, and now I want to set this rate value to this rate of interest. So how I will do it? I will call the rate of interest variable, that is the static member, using the class name and scope resolution operator. So I am using it as a class name, then scope resolution operator, then rate of interest, which is the static member, and equal to rate. So whatever the values inserted by user into rate variable, that will be stored into rate of interest, and which is under the class only, which is not under any object. So because it is a static member, so the rate of interest is set here. And finally I am calling the accept method and passing both the principal and duration, which is accepted in the above pr and dr. So both the values are passed here. Those values will be copied into p and d, and from that they will be copied into principal and duration. So the principal and duration values are set using this accept method, and finally I am calling the display method. So in the display method there will be calculation part, that is the calculate interest method will be run, and the calculation will be stored into interest, and that interest is displayed using the cout message. So this is how the display will be displaying the interest that is calculated. And finally getch is there to hold the output screen, and as the main function is having integer return type, we have to return with 0. So finally the program is complete. So selecting all, copying it, going to compiler, pasting it here, going to debug, running the code. So it is asking me to enter the principal amount. I'm just entering some value 1000. Then it is asking me to enter duration. Then the rate of interest is asked, so I am putting it as 6.5. If you see, the simple interest is calculated as 325. So if you see the formula, it has calculated properly. So the answer is correct, and simple interest is calculated using static data member. So this is how the question is complete. Now the next question is under practical related questions, that is write a program to calculate weight of object at different planets using formula weight is equal to m into g, where m is equal to mass of object and g is equal to gravitational force. Declare g as a static member variable. So it is similar to the previous question. We have to calculate the weight using some values, that is mass and gravitational force, and g is declared as static member variable. So directly moving to the coding part. So initially we have to include both the header files, that is iostream.h and conio.h. Then after that I am starting the class definition, that is class, then class name. I am taking it as a planet, then opening the curly bracket, then opening the public section of the class. Inside that I am taking a static variable which is given in the question, that is g. I am defining it as double variable, and before that I am attaching a static keyword. So this will become a static double variable, so which is common to entire class. Then after that I am using one more function to calculate the weight, and inside that function I am passing one parameter which is a double value. So double mass is the parameter, and the return type of that function is double. So the return statement will be mass into g, which is given in the question. So this will be the multiplication part, and that will be returned as the output. So the function will be returning a double value as the output. So the function is complete. Finally the class is ended with bracket and semicolon. And as we have seen in the previous example, that we have to initialize this static variable with some value. So this is how I am initializing it. First one is the data type, then after that we have to call it using the class name. So planet is the class name, then scope resolution operator, then the name of the variable, that is g, is equal to some value. So I am assigning 9.8 as a value to the g variable, which is static variable. After that moving to the main part. So starting the main function int main, and inside that we have to accept the values for this mass and gravity. These are the values accepted by user. So that's why we have to create these two variables as a double mass and double gravity. And after that I am putting the message, that is enter the mass of the object, which will be accepted into mass variable. And after that I am putting message to enter the gravitational force, which is accepted into gravity variable. So both the mass and gravity is entered by the user. And after that I am creating the object of that class, that is planet p, and as we have to set the gravity value which is entered by user into this g variable, so we have to call this g variable as planet scope resolution g, because it is not a object variable, it is a class variable, it is a static variable. So we have to call it using class name. So class name scope resolution operator g is equal to the gravity value which is entered by user. So it will set the gravity value which is entered by user. And finally I am calling the calculate weight function, and this will be returning a double value. So that's why I am taking double weight. So this is the variable which will be storing the output, is equal to the calculate weight function is not a static function. So that's why we have to call it using object. So the object we have created is the p, So P dot calculate weight, and inside the bracket I am passing parameter which is the mass value which is entered by user. So the whole function will calculate the weight using this mass value and the G value, and that output result will be stored into weight. So this is how we have calculated the weight here, and finally the remaining step is to print the weight which is calculated. So the weight of the object on the planet is, this is the message, and I am attaching the weight value and attaching the unit which is Newton. So capital N is used for Newton. So this is how we have formatted the output, and finally handle is there to move the cursor to next line. Then get ch is there to hold the output screen, and finally we are returning 0 as the main function is returning int value. So this is how the program is ended. So just selecting all, copying this code, going to compiler, pasting it here, then running the code. So it is asking me to enter the mass of the object, so I am just putting 50 here. Then enter the gravitational force on the planet, I am just putting 9.0 here. So it has calculated the weight of the object on the planet as 450 Newton. So the calculation is correct, and it has used the static member also. So this is how we have solved the second example also, and the practical number 8 is also completed. So we have calculated the weight properly using static members. So the practical 8 is complete here. So that's it for today's practical. I hope this helped you understand the solution clearly. Code for this practical is available at the link given in the description. If you found this video useful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel for more such diploma level programming solutions. If you have any doubts or need solutions for other programs, drop a comment below. I will be happy to help. And hit the bell icon so you never miss a new video. Thanks for watching and happy coding.